wanna go back to the good old days. Don't understand why you had to change. Ain't on me, ain't on me. I wanna go back to the good old days. Don't understand why you had to go away, away from me, away from me.
He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. To him who overcomes, I will give to eat from the tree of life, which is in the midst of the paradise of Elohim.
He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. To him that overcometh will I give to eat of the tree of life, which is in the midst of the paradise of God. Explanation. The Spirit that is speaking is non-ether reason. The tree of life is NoopooH, who represent the life of life, and is the root of all the stars, planets, satellites, original pigment gods, goddesses, and the entire Ethiopian black race by extension. Before we go any further, I just want to clarify for the listening and reading audience that NoopooH are mental energies. They are not spirit forces. Okay, so I'm gonna back that up with the information so we can understand that. Okay, so we're gonna go into the transcript of the audio tape number 59, page 29. Excuse me. Listen to reason. We Africans by race need the ability, knowledge, and guidance of sound right reason, called NoopooH, and our science known as Noon, in order to be mentally resurrected from the grave of ignorance about and liberation from enemy forces. Sound right reason NoopooH is neither an individual spirit or spirits, nor spirit gods or goddesses. Sound right reason is the best mind of the one supreme being called absolute nature, who is infinite in all directions and eternal. Sound right reason is mind energy of the all in all that emanates from the centers of the suns of the universes and penetrates the persons, places, and things of the universes. Sound right reason changes the atmosphere we breathe and the way we think. Let it be remembered, always let it be known. Okay, so that's one quote. So again, when you get into Noon and start really reading and letting that information penetrate through the ignorance of the fog in our minds, and once that sound right reason penetrates through the form of correct information, then you will start to mentally resurrect, because that's the only thing that NoopooH can do with an ignorant mind, is first give it knowledge. Then there's a increase in mental resurrection over time. All right, this next one is the Nature Book 2, number 240, page 169. And it says, listen to reason. Right now, mental energies from the centers of all universe orbs are moving more positive toward NoopooH. In addition, the negative force of nature that ruled the bottom half of the the smart circle of order, have a positive side as well as negative side. And that positive side is partial, favorable to NoopooH and Noon. And this fact means that although NoopooH is not spirit beings in the bottom half of the order circle, NoopooH and Noon have spirit beings aid and support and recognition, because spirit beings know, even though they have created and supported religion, For 6,000 years, it is time for us all, spirit beings as well as human beings, to be taken upward in standards and values and qualities by nine-ether mentality, NoopooH, and also nine-mind knowledge, noon, counterclockwise on the right side of the smack circle of order. Let it be remembered, always let it be known. Alright, so basically, NoopooH is influencing the orbs, who in turn create spirit or spirits to go out and help set shop up for NoopooH and Noon to spread and to help everybody that's in a situation of self-destruction, which is basically all of the universes and planets and things like that. But when you get into the information, you will see how vast this really is. So basically, it's just saying, here that hath an ear, let him hear. That's the same way as saying listen to reason, right? Listen to intelligence. Okay? Listen to reason. When all the true stars, all original sons of a universe are fully formed and fully developed by brains and sound right reason, then the fetus of the universe is ready to be born. Of course, the fetus is the fully formed and fully developed true stars of a universe, undoubtedly the cores of the universe. Water balls are the center brains of the true stars, the suns of the universe, which are now ready for birth. The reason, energy, mind figuring out and directing all original creation activities is the intelligence in nature named NoopooH, who is the original prime mover and mind. Another thing to remember about the original creation process is the fact that indeed the universes of infinite nature grew to be what they are, just as a tree grows to be what it is, and a person or other thing grows to be what he, she, or it is. What is expressed in this paragraph is just another way of stating and emphasizing what the writer has already asserted and discussed early in this book. But saying the same thing again or the same thing in a different way is always fine too. The memory or nice to the perception of a person or both. The gestation process and period start at point 3 south on the smack circle of order and go counterclockwise to point 6 east. See figure 6 in part 2 of these writings. Then the universe of almighty nature entered the mental and also physical and spiritual lights called origination. Let it be remembered always and let it be known. Introduction to the Nature Book 1, page 193. Listen to reason. When the suns do suffer scientific death at point 6 west, the flesh and blood gods and goddesses, as well as the spirit gods and goddesses, become Ta instead of being NoopooH as they were before. As the suns emit 6 ether instead of 9 ether, which turns NoopooH into the powers called Ta. Ta, now subject to sex and death, reproduces the Takanite race, the Ethiopian race, which is another way of saying the Takan people, and Ta does this before they do die out and become extinct. Thus, Ta, physically in the form of the African pygmy, is the race ancestral tree of the Ethiopian race. Physical Ta, the flesh and blood gods and goddesses, die out, sinks into the bowels of Mother Goddess Earth, metamorph and is reborn from the waters of Indonesia on the equator in the person of monkey, pronounced monkey. The race ancestral tree of original man called the Mankinaw race, which is another way of saying mankind people. The correct information found in this topic tells us why Ta in mythology and ancient Egyptian religion is called the creator of gods and men. The gods being the flesh and blood demigods and goddesses that resulted from scientific death, and the spirit gods and goddesses who descended to invincibility. Let it be remembered, always let it be known. Again, remember the last video, I think Revelation chapter 9, or I think it's Revelation chapter 1, where I go into the location of what the Bible was referring to where the sapphire stone was symbolic or stood in representation of the volcano that spits out a blue flame at night because of the sulfur and things like that. Indonesia is where this was. So this is where the original Phoenician came from, or the monkey, or type of monkey man, which all of the so-called community is looking for. All you got to do is go to Indonesia and look at the type of monkeys that came from there. All right, I will go into that, but that will be at another time. All right. Introduced to the Nature Book 1, page 220. The seven churches are the seven oils planets that aligned on February 5th, 1962 AD. And let me add this other quote too as well, to make sure the listening audience and reading audience can understand. Once again, NoopooH mental energies. Mental energies are not the same as spirit forces, okay, or ether or gas, because gases are made up of elements, and elements are forms of energy. You see, so ethers are like lesser degrees of mental energies that are created from brain concentration. Okay, and then using water, blood, things like that to originate spirit forces. But mental energies always been there. They always been around. So it says here, this comes from Nature Book 2, pages 167 and 168, says, number 238, listen to reason. NoopooH has already been conceived and is now beginning to emanate and gestate by mentally resurrecting human beings as well as universe bodies such as the stars, planets, and satellites. We human beings must let Noon, the positive science of NoopooH, be our guide, because Noon is designed to put nature knowledge in chronological order and our minds in order along with it. Hence, do not let other information confuse you anymore, because the aim and objective of the negative force of nature is to do just that. Keep us confused and confounded. Pronouncing the name NoopooH often and 9 times or more magnifies and unites 9 ether mind and 9 ether mentality. Look, acts as our spirit being guide, together with the positive forces side of the negative. So again, if something is acting as your guide, that means NoopooH is acting in place of spirit forces, because spirit forces are on the negative side and have been so for a long period of time. However, everything that's negative has the positive side, and that positive side of these ethers, right, which are predominantly the negative side of nature, their positive side still helps NoopooH. But because the spirits are tricky and elusive and they follow their own line of reasoning, is the reason why you can't depend on spirit beings to help you in certain situations, because they're going to flip-flop in and out depending on the spirit. But like I said, when you're dealing with like tarot and other forms of spirituality, where the spirit is continually, constantly coming through one way, telling you something that you can confirm, like relationships and situations that occur that tarot readers talk about, that's a way for you to know if it's right and exact or not. But this is just giving you an overall understanding. So NoopooH acts as our spirit beings and guide, together with the positive force side of the negative. If you are immutable and adhere to the sign of the sunrise reason known as Noon, this writer repeats, NoopooH is developing in the universe orbs such as the sun, earth, and moon, and also in the atmosphere, and likewise in the minds of persons and things. The conception of NoopooH is like the birth of NoopooH to us human beings, because the universe physical birth of NoopooH does not occur until all existence reaches 0.6 east on the SMAT circular order. Let it be remembered. Alright, so that's just a little extra adding on that. So when you read that quote again, when it talks about the spirit, this is talking about NoopooH, because spirit are forms of ether. NoopooH 9 mind, when it talks about 9 ether, is speaking about the energies that bring in brains that bring in the ether. But that's a whole nother level at this point. Alright, just wanted to put that in there.
To him who overcomes, I will give to eat from the tree of life, which is in the midst of the paradise of Elohim.
Alright, so we're going to continue breaking down Revelation chapter 2 verse 7 before we move on. Okay? To him that overcometh will I give to eat of the tree of life, which is in the midst of the paradise of God. Explanations. NoopooH is speaking of paradise on earth, which are physical locations, not somewhere off in the sky. And the reason being, because NoopooH deals with reality and what is. ZooPooH deals with non-reality and what isn't. Like, for example, they teach you that hell is hot. But then when they talk about heaven, they don't show the opposite of hell, which is supposed to be heat, which is what cold. They show you nice conditions, but those conditions are different from the conditions in hell, but we talking about temperature. So if hell is extremely hot, the opposite of hot should be extremely cold. Not extreme, because you can't have extremely good weather, because extreme means to be past that which is non-extreme. So it's either one way and the opposite of that one way. So that's just one of the games that Six Ether plays with the mentality and reasonability of people in religion. Alright, this is coming from the Bible interpretation. It said, who was Cain's wife, and did they ever return from the land of Nod? Cain was not one person, but a group of albinos who were the beginning of the Caucasian race. Therefore, Cain was males and females, and of course the males took the females for mates. The first groups of Cainites returned to the Asian islands, and from there to the Garden of Eden approximately 1,000 years after Adam and Eve had been ousted from that paradise. The time was around 3000 BC when King Cheops of Egypt, who was ruling Western Asia and Northern Africa at that time, lifted the immigration ban which had been placed on Adam and Eve and their offspring to keep them from returning to the Garden of Eden, Asia and Africa. When Cain reached the garden, he and she were not called Cain anymore. They were called Seth, same as Egyptian Seth, which means serpent. In the Bible, Seth is pictured as the third son of Adam and Eve, but the birth of Seth actually means a rebirth for Adam and Eve in the person of Cain back to the lands of Africa and Asia of culture and riches. Notice in the Bible how similar some of the names of the descendants of Cain and Seth are. Genesis, the 4th and 5th chapters. It is no coincidence. So all this means that the Bible is the spiritual book of Cain and his God, the moon god, who has many names and titles such as Sin, Set, Thoth, Siva, Hermes, Leviathan, also known as Poseidon. Bible interpretation and explanation letter, book 1, letter E, number 9. Alright, the Jews, who were originally Greeks from Greece, who became the first Caucasian groups to reach the lands of Africa and Asia of culture and riches around 3000 BC. Hence, they became known as Hebrews in ancient times. So, this is when they were ever in Africa and Asia. 3000 BC as the Hyksos and the Shepherd Kings. So, before 3000 BC, there was none of them people there. So, you can't be from a land you were never from, because they was from another place, which we're going to get into that later. Alright, hence it became known as Hebrews in ancient times. The word Hebrew means black and star worshiper, and because the Phoenicians were star worshippers is one reason the Jewish people have a star today as their religious symbol. Moreover, a star is a symbol of power, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. The Jews' original symbol was the cross, like the other Caucasian symbols. Hebrew is a variant of the word Gebre, also spelled Gebra, meaning mighty. Okay, that's where you get the word Gabriel, which is, some say Jabriel, Gabriel. All that comes from Gebra. So it's a whole bunch of information y'all don't have. And because you don't have that, it's why people are like Kanye and them are making these mistakes in their speech, because they're missing little key components, and this is how they trip them up every time. But if they actually dealt with the origin of things, then they would have a better impact. Bible Interpretation and Explanations, Book 1, number 18. Paradise is in Africa and Asia according to sound, right reason, and reality. Again, those who know about Africa and Asia, some of the biggest continents around, have plenty riches and wealth and land and stuff in those areas. Okay? To him that overcometh will I give to eat of the tree of life. So let's dig into what is the tree of life. All right, we go to the nature books. What is life and what is death, and is there life after death? Listen to reason. Some people are taught to believe that such each time a person is born, he or she has a new soul who never existed before. This is not true. But what is true is that the baby just born has a new body that never existed before, and the new body must produce life for itself if it is to continue to live after birth. The umbilical cord of the mother provides life for provides life for the embryo and fetus during the gestation period before the infant is born. It is not an individual spirit being called a soul that keeps the body alive, because spirit beings survive on the food and blood of the living body themselves. In other words, it is just the opposite of what religionists teach. Instead of spirit beings being the lives of people, people are the lives of the spirit beings, because life itself is indeed a burning. The burning can be conscious or unconscious, constructive or destructive. There exists the life of life and the life of death. The life of life exists in the top half of the circle of existence during the time that the top half exists, and the life of death has being in the bottom half of the same circle. Like life, death lives. Otherwise, it could not be active in reverse life. Let it be remembered, always let it be known. Moon, set, and sunrise in the nature, page 28.
And to the angel of the church in Smyrna write, these things says the first and the last, who was dead and came to life. I know your works, tribulation and poverty, but you are rich. And I know the blasphemy of those who say they are Jews and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan. Do not fear any of those things which you are about to suffer. Indeed, the devil is about to throw some of you into prison, that you may be tested, and you will have tribulation 10 days. Be faithful until death, and I will give you the crown of life. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. He who overcomes shall not be hurt by the second death.
Revelation 2:9. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. End quote. Listen to reason. Therefore it is true that the negative force of nature, known as Satan, the moon god Sin, the earth god Leviathan, and the underworld god Pluto started taking over rulership of planet Earth from the sun god Taharakti at the beginning of the moon cycle, which was starting point for religion approximately 6,000 years ago. And since this time there have been many kinds of religion and many denominations and cults of religion. After the unity of spiritual science by reason was dispelled in the Garden of Eden after the rebellion. Indeed, the spiritual science at that time was Sabiism, the worship of the suns. And if it were not for the evil spells and curses so spellbound upon us from religion, the mental, spiritual, and physical statuses of the Ethiopian race, as long and hard as we have been struggling for liberation, would be up to par by now. Let it be remembered always, and let it be known. So in noon, Satan is a couple of forces that work together to create all of the ills that are going on the planet, that religion doesn't know that its creators, which are the spirit beings, combined all of these particular. I want to see the moon god sin. That's a spirit god. That emanates from the negative side of the moon. Leviathan is part of the earth god, which the earth god is everything on the surface of the planet. That's the earth god. Leviathan, which is a sex force and a water force, is a part of the earth god. And then you have the underworld god Pluto, which is Osiris. So everything underneath the planet, to a certain extent, before we get into the lava and all of that, that's the underworld, where the caverns at, and people and beings and ETs live down there, and all types of negative things are going on. Those three players is what constitute Satan. So when people say the devil is hard at work, or the devil is over here and over there and all around, that's because when you start pinpointing where the devil is at, when you say, oh yeah, the devil's over here in California doing evil, and then over there in Africa, the devil's over there doing something, because you're talking about the earth. All these three forces work together, and they're able to be in all these places at the same time, because they are energies and spirits that are dispersed everywhere a human being is at, and they have control over these places. Introduction to the Nature, Book 2, page 240. Revelation 2:10. Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that you may be tried, and you shall be tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. Explanation. The tribulation wasn't 10 days. It was symbolic of the 60 plus years set aside to close out evolution, which is February 5th, 1962 to February 5th, 2025. Okay? So, again, you can make that 1 into a 6, but we know that it's 60. Alright? It's 60 plus years. So, everybody is in the form of a prison if you look around the planet. Because if you ain't super rich, even though people in the prison, but here it's basically saying in this case, because you're talking about judgment time, and after that, sentencing time. That's why the Bible is saying that many of you will be thrown into prison. But the prison that people are going to go to is the sentencing now. Remember, I be saying that. I keep saying that there's a spiritual warrant being sent out to get all these people. You see Nature Boy, you see Dr. Yo, you see all these people now who've been doing all this dirt behind the scenes is finna come out. Puff, all these people is going down. So they will be casted into prison because they've been free all this time. See, say the devil's gonna try you, right? Because the evil are ruling. So that's the only way people like Puff and all these other people that got all this power, they're the evil ones that are trying you and throwing you in prison for telling the truth, like they did Judy Makovich, who discovered a way to cure AIDS, and then Dr. Rauchi, right, came in and took that lady's work and had her put in jail, and then did something with her medical work, and then things went haywire. So you have all of these people in power who are evil, or the devil, are trying the innocent people and the people that are out here trying to make a change for the positive. So they're coming into people's world, and they've been locking people ever since 1962 been in, since the powers and the forces, the sun cycles coming in. Now it's changing. So we done passed the 60 years now. Now everything is sentencing time. So these people are now already did they 60 years, but you still got to be careful. But now a lot of people are going to jail. They're supposed to go to jail. Young Thug, all these people, because they're pushing drugs and vulgar music, anything to turn the youth away from their future. See? which is February 5th, 1962 AD to February 5th, 2025 AD, we have survived Osiris's onslaught to kill about 2 billion humans worldwide using their V word, with his partner in crime Tahuti and son Pandemic, Pandemonic. Remember this world. So when you start going into Pan, you'll find out he is the son of Tahuti. Alright? And Pandemic, Pandemonic, all that stuff go together. Listen to reason, however, if the complete ending of the evolution does not happen within 60 years, including the cataclysm for Point 3 South, from the year announced by one who was qualified to proclaim it, and I proclaimed it February 5th, 2025, when the cataclysm does come, the universes are on their way down and out to the smack circle of chaos. Ghost God being the last evolutionary stage of the spirit dead can be mighty oppressive and very bloodthirsty. And this is why the Caucasian Bible states, St. Matthew, the 24th chapter, in verse 21 and 22, that if the days or years of ending evolution are not shortened by the universe scientists for the sake of the elect, elite, and innocent, there will not be any flesh saved, and no one will survive Armageddon. The events and disasters that close out the end of evolution, let it be remembered always and let it be known. Introduction to the Nature of Nature, Book 2, page 135. Listen to reason. The Caucasian race is shown on the dot next to the last dot, counterclockwise, on the order circle, C-shape 31 on page 68. But the writer does put it there for the purpose of orderly sequence, because that dot is 2 million years away from the end of evolution. Yet the Caucasian race originated 6,000 years before the end of evolution, whose ending began in the Caucasian Christian year 1962. When a year like 1962 is given for the end or ending of a major cycle, like the evolution cycle, this does not mean that all affairs and events of the end are supposed to happen in that given year, because we are dealing in thousands and millions of years. In actuality and practicality, a given year for the ending means that the ending events, including the Great Point 3 South cataclysm of the circle, will take place within 60 years from the announced ending year point for Point 3 South, within 75 years for Point 6 East, within 90 years for Point 9 North, and within 75 years for Point 6 West. Let it be remembered always, let it be known. Introduction to the Nature of Nature, Book 2, page 134.